California has more than its share of ghostly residents, and true to its West Coast way of life, many of them are stories from the times of the past. While stories of the spirits of Marilyn Monroe and Howard Hughes are well known, these two legends have supposedly been glimpsed in dozens of locations. The state is home to places where the presence of spirits isn't merely a fabrication to boast a tourist trade. In fact, were these buildings left in their original condition, no sane tourist would set foot in them. And though such places usually get facelifts, much like aging stars, their souls stick around. A case in point is Camarillo State Mental Hospital, built in 1936 in the small coastal town of Camarillo, a jumping-off point for the Channel Islands. The State Mental Hospital first opens its doors in the era when people with mental disorders were called crazies, lunatics, or criminally insane. The acreage around the facility was used as farmland, complete with a dairy. The patients, alcoholics, pedophiles, or those who with mental illness, retardation, or violent tendencies had no need to leave the grounds for any of their needs, nor were they allowed to. By the 1950s, more than 7,000 people, some as young as 11 years old, were housed in the massive facility. Patients wore tan jumpsuits to distinguish them from the facility staff and to make it easier to identify any patients who tried to escape. The rowdiest were routinely kept under control with powerful drugs. Those who were still uncontrollable were subjected to electroshock therapy. Another routine treatment was to immerse the patients in hot water, then wrap them in ice-cold towels immediately after they were pulled out. Still others were strapped to their beds until they were exhausted themselves. Investigations of hospital revealed brutality on the part of the guards and incidents of inmates abusing and even killing one another. Given Camarillo's House of Horrors atmosphere, it will come as no surprise that people who either worked or lived there have had some compelling stories of the hauntings that have occurred there. A female janitor got a shock one evening when cleaning the women's restroom. As she bent to pick something up off the floor, she noticed a pair of legs, which she described as obviously belonging to a man, under the door of the stall. When she called out to the person, there was no answer. She pushed the door open only to find the stall was empty. She refused to enter the restroom again. Another employee, a nurse named Debbie, had a strange encounter while sneaking a cigarette during a rainy day. Not wanting to go outside in the rain, she opened the doors to the courtyard and lit up. No sooner had she taken her first puff than as soon as she put it, someone grabbed her roughly by the shoulders and shook her hard. When she turned to see who it was, there was no one there. On one occasion, a 65-year-old nurse claimed to have been grabbed by the hair and pulled backward out of the chair by an unseen assailant. Though there were no witnesses to the accident, one of the nurse's co-workers, a 10-year-old veteran of Camarillo named Cheryl Downey, thought the story was eerie, but it wasn't until her own encounter with the supernatural that she began to believe a former male patient was picking on women. She says that during one of the busiest times of the day, just after breakfast, she spotted a man she'd never seen before outfitted in a uniform worn by the patients in the old days of the asylum. He was walking into the women's restroom. When she called out to stop him, he continued as if he hadn't heard her. Cheryl called her co-worker to rouse to the man, but the room turned out to be empty. There were no other exits or windows, so the man couldn't have left without anyone seeing him. As Cheryl puzzled over his sudden disappearance, her co-worker screamed. The man was standing directly behind Cheryl and then promptly vanished into thin air. In the mid-'70s, things changed at Camarillo. The institution examined its policies and began working to actually heal the patients instead of locking them away. By the early 1990s, conditions had improved significantly. Patients were taught real skills and underwent less radical types of therapy. A petting zoo was even added to help the developmentally challenged children and the residents. Towards the end of the Reagan administration, the president instituted a new legislative mandate of deinstitutionalization. It heralded for the end of Camarillo as patients were moved to other facilities or released back into the streets. Camarillo closed its doors in 1997, marking the end of an era. Still, scars left by the old treatment methods remain. Future employees, as well as workers who would renovate the buildings, tall tales of phantom presences, moving objects, and several strangely coincidental deaths. Even movie crews, which had used the buildings for several set locations, have reported strange encounters. Most people who've entered the old hospital grounds are affected in one way or another. Headaches and nausea are very common, as are dizziness and fatigue. Many who enter say they feel they are being watched or threatened. While such feelings can be put down to the imagination, it's the eyewitness accounts that provide a chilling view into the past of Camarillo State Hospital. Many have heard the voices and laughter of children at the building, once designated as a children's center, and the former petting zoo as well. A beautiful woman in white, assumed to be a nurse, roams the hallways of the bell tower, only to vanish when confronted. There are also reports of an old woman who walks the grounds outside the bell tower, and a man who sits at the bus stop. There's even a chattering ghost in the bell tower's ladies' room. While on location shoot in May 2004, several members of the film crew reported tools missing, tools later found, and unopened rooms. Set builders talked of windows slamming shut on their own, microwave ovens thrown to the floor, and strange knocking on the walls. Cold spots were also common in the building. Several of the crew quit saying the place was just too creepy. There even appears to be something strange about the back road into the hospital, which has been the scene of several unexplained car accidents. Although the road wasn't heavily traveled, car crashes on it were frequent. Following an incident that killed a Camarillo nurse, an autopsy showed that the otherwise healthy woman had suffered a freak brain embolism. Its connections to celebrities have amplified the reputation of the Camarillo State Mental Hospital. Jazz legend Charlie Parker stayed for 7 months after a nervous breakdown in 1947, and soon after recorded his hit Relaxing at Camarillo. The old hospital is also remembered by some to be the inspiration of the Eagles' 1976 hit Hotel California. The complex has taken on new life since its 1997 closing. Renovations began in 2000, and 2 years later, the buildings that were once considered the most notorious mental hospital in California opened their doors once again. This time, the California State University Channel Islands. The buildings look the same as before on the outside. Inside, cells have been converted into classrooms and dorms. The restless souls, however, seem to remain. Aspirations appear with little regard of time, of year, or day. However, the current school administrators and other governing bodies seem to want to forget about Camarillo's storied past. So your best chance of encountering a ghost on the campus is to enroll for a semester and keep your eyes open. And what is now a trend with old prisons, the Wyoming State Penitentiary has become something of a tourist attraction. Public functions are held on its grounds and inside, including a bazaar and a haunted Halloween tour. These interesting can follow the paths of the damned all the way to the gas chamber. Guides are always willing to share their experiences in the building, and while some of the stories may sound unbelievable, there are always corroborating witnesses, be the employees or strangers. Tours geared towards paranormal enthusiasts are best taken during one of the evenings of Halloween, but that hardly means that All Hallows Eve is the only time to experience something unexplainable. As the guides themselves will tell you, there is always something happening, and you never know when something will catch you out of the corner of your eye.